So, Alex, I would like to touch on some ideas in your first book, if you don't mind. And that was a courageous organizational communication case studies. And we'll share a link to that as well. And then I'd like to dive into some questions around your new book that was just released, which I think is just fantastic. And that's Positive Communication for Leaders, Proven Strategies for Inspiring Unity and Effecting Change. So, Alex, if I may, I want to share with our listeners some of your insight around the importance of courageous communication. So, can you tell us more about your communication-based model of courage and what that's all about?
Yeah, it really is a communication-based model of courage. So we're all familiar with the basic idea of courage. Sometimes there's something difficult you have to do. It's challenging. You have to go against the grain for whatever reason. And you've got to muster up some courage to take action. So the same principles apply to communication in the workplace. There are norms and even what you might call, quote, best practices that sometimes in the end, we find out they're not all that good for the organization's long-term health and effectiveness. And so courageous communication is setting up 4 key communication practices that help people speak up against sometimes the norms that are there and the tradition that's there and the cultures that's there, and to help the organization turn a corner and become more effective. So it takes courage to speak up and to go
Mhm.
against things. No one likes to be that, this is the old expression, the nail that sticks up is the one that gets pounded down. So these are the kinds of practices that will ultimately make things better for everybody, but they're a little challenging to do.
Yeah. And Alex, can you share how can leaders encourage and model courageous communication in their teams? Can you just provide some general practical tips to our listeners on that point?
Yeah, we could go into a lot of
Yeah.
it. I guess I can give you the 4 key behaviors
Sure.
that we
Yeah.
break down, then we can go from there.
Sure.
The first tension is between the tendency for leaders to have controlling communication versus collaborative communication. So the case studies are both cautionary tales and success stories about organizations who struggled with control because that often can squelch innovation and make it very difficult for anything to get done when systems are so controlling that their people can't thrive. That's not good. So I advocate moving toward a more collaborative approach to generate new ideas, to innovate, to move more quickly. So that's the first communication behavior. The second one is balancing all of that top down communication with bottom up communication. There's plenty of top down communication. We get inundated with emails, with notifications, with reminders, with meetings, and we need all that. I understand. But there are very few systems typically in organizations to solicit and move communication up the chain of command. I'm thinking about the 2 NASA shuttle explosions. Like the people at the bottom totally understood the difficulties, the problems, and they couldn't get anyone to listen. They had no channel of communication to pass their important information upward. So balancing that top down with upward. The third behavior is being transparent rather than secretive. Many organizations are obsessed with secrecy to the point where even people within their organization aren't allowed to talk about really important issues, especially the issues that could hurt the organization. So I'm advocating for more transparent communication about the issues that matter most. And one of the key signals is the stuff that people are afraid to talk about, don't want to talk about. Those are usually the exact things they should be talking about because those are the ones that can take down a whole company. And then the fourth behavior is a tension between being more engaging versus the tendency for the communication in most organizations to be impersonal. Everything's automated. We're always talking to chatbots and robots. But how can we communicate and connect more on a personal and engaging interpersonal level so that we connect as real whole human beings rather than just a person in a role communicating with another person in the role, and that's the end of it. So those are the 4 key behaviors that take some courage.